I want to call this meeting to order. It's the Thursday, September 19, 2024, regular village board meeting. Let's have a roll call, please.
Trustee Hallwax.
Here.
Trustee Listener. Here. Trustee Mealopoulos. Here. Trustee Underdunk. Here. Trustee Rubin. Here. Trustee Scott. Here. President Rowan.
Here. We are live streaming this meeting and will make the recording available on the village's YouTube channel following the conclusion of the meeting. The next item on the agenda is consideration of minutes. And the minutes have been circulated for the regular meeting on August 15th, 2024. Are there any comments on the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve them?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, the minutes are approved. The next item, and we're moving it up so that our public safety officers can get back outside and protect us. This is a presentation of a life-saving award to one of our public safety officers and a citizen award as well, which we read about. But I'll ask our public safety director, Sean Loughran, present the department's life-saving award to public safety officer Stephen Solomini and the citizen award to his wife, Samantha Solomini, who we are glad to see since we read about them in the paper earlier. Chief Loughran.
No, it's on the back, Sean.
Now, much better. Honorable President Rowan, village trustees, and village manager Crowley, thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation and tell you this amazing story. As you know, I am incredibly proud of the work of our public safety officers performed daily on behalf of Glencoe residents. The impact they have collectively, both in the village and in the region, is immeasurable. On this particular occasion, I have the opportunity to share with the public an amazing story that proves once again the positive impact our officers and their wives can have. By way of background, tonight's recognition is the result of the implementation of a new policy providing a formal structure to recognize outstanding work for our members and the public in the form of department awards. On August 12, 2024, off-duty officer Stephen Solomini, badge number 664, and his then fiancée, Samantha Schmidt, were driving in the 200 block of Wethington Drive in Wakanda. Samantha observed fire blowing out of the front windows of an apartment building. They immediately performed a U-turn on Illinois Route 176 and without hesitation went towards the apartments. Officer Solomini found the homeowner of one of the units outside the building watching the fire. They asked him if anyone else was inside. The resident said no one was in his apartment, but he was also clearly in a state of confusion. Officer Solomini, with no regard for his own health and well-being, shouldered down the main door vestibule to gain access to the front hallway. Now, I can tell you from personal experience, a burning building is the last place a police officer wants to go into. And Officer Solomini has not yet, though you recall when we hired him as a lateral transfer, he has not yet attended Fire Academy. Officer Solomini could see flames coming from under the door of one of these second-story units and immediately ran to the adjacent unit. Officer Solomini was able to make contact with the unit owners by knocking on the door and, with some convincing, evacuated all residents from the unit. Officer Solomini then ran back in a second time and was unable to get anyone to answer the door from the unit directly below the fire. Officer Solomini then kicked in the door and was able to evacuate one lone occupant inside who was completely unaware of the surroundings. For the third and final time, Officer Solomini ran back inside and checked the lower adjacent unit, found the unit was vacant, at which time Officer Solomini vacated the structure. Simultaneous to Stephen's actions, Samantha proceeded to an adjacent structure and began to alert all occupants of the fire. She was successful in making contact with all occupants of multiple apartments and safely evacuated them, each without incident. 12 fire departments responded to the mutual aid request to battle the conflagration, which resulted in several $100,000 in damage. 5 of the 8 units were declared uninhabitable. 1 occupant was treated on site for smoke inhalation. The Solomini family's selfless acts were above reproach and exemplify what it truly means to never be completely off-duty. If not for their quick response and actions, there is little doubt that grave consequences and/or death would have been the ultimate outcome. For reasons outlined in this report, Officer Stephen Solomini, badge 664, is presented with the Life Saving Award, while Samantha Solomini is presented with the Citizens Award. Of note, I guess this qualifies as their honeymoon, as they were just married last Saturday. So, come on forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Loughran. So there should be a special award for having your honeymoon in Glencoe. And we couldn't be more proud of the two of you. It makes us proud of the village because you wanted to work here. It makes us proud of our public safety department to want to work with them. It makes me proud of our Public Safety Commission for figuring out that we should hire you. And then what the two of you did, most people live their lives and never have done anything like that. So we are so thrilled to be associated with the two of you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is public comment. This portion of the meeting allows for those in attendance to address the board regarding non-agenda items. This is where we allow the public to talk about things that are within the purview of our jurisdiction but not listed as another item on the agenda. If you want to talk about a matter that is listed on the agenda, we'll ask that you wait until the agenda item is called, and we'll give you an opportunity to speak then. If your matter is on the consent agenda and you want to talk about that, let us know so you can talk about it. Anyone desiring to speak should fill out a written speaker form, which is at the back of the boardroom, and submit it to the village manager. I have some names here. The time for public comment is a time for you to make comments to the board. We'll listen to everything you have to say, but we will not ordinarily be discussing or engaging with you. If appropriate, we may ask the village manager or other village staff to respond to questions or issues raised at a later date. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. To be fair to all, we will strictly enforce this rule. Per established policy, we will limit all public comment to a total of 30 minutes. We ask that all speakers be respectful, civil, and non-repetitive, and we ask that all members of the audience refrain from applauding or making any of their comments during or after any speaker. I don't usually do this, but we have been notified that one of our residents, Ashley Thompson, wants to speak about an issue that we did not have time to put on our agenda, which concerns chickens. So I would, since we expect this, I don't usually do this, but I want to invite Ms. Thompson to come on up and tell us what your issue is. And I'm going to warn everybody that since we got advance warning, we may have something to say about it. Come on up.
Well, I am in sales, so PowerPoints are my life. I did prepare. Unfortunately, I don't have enough. I thought it was just 7, so.
Well, we can share.
Good evening. I'm Ashley Thompson. I have been in Glencoe for 12 years. Recently, 3 years ago, we moved on to South Avenue by Central School, like right in downtown. We've always wanted to live in downtown Glencoe. So we received new neighbors just over a year ago, and with the neighbors, they brought chickens. And at that time, we learned that chickens were a thing in Glencoe. We hadn't really known that it was approved. The reason that we were more surprised than anything, I think, is because of the kind of property that they have in proximity to our property. We basically live on top of each other. Our property line and houses are very close together, and it has become a huge nuisance to us. And I want to preface saying that I'm not coming to you with them moving in 4 days ago. This has been over a year, so we've really tried to live with it and tried to just accept it and figure out a way forward. But we can't. And there's been several times that I've said to my husband, I want to move. I need to get out of this house. So a couple of things, and you have the printout, but the noise, we can't sleep with our windows open. My children have been woken up 6:30, 7 a.m. during the week before school, on the weekends. And not only can we hear them with the windows open, I can hear them with the windows shut. I can be in the kitchen in the morning and I hear the chickens. I can be upstairs and I hear the chickens. It's not like music that we expect, or kids talking downtown. Like, I can't turn them off like music, or I can't bring the dog in if it's barking. They're 24/7 outside, and that's where they live. Not only do we hear the chickens, but I look at their coop all day long. Our properties are so close together that I see the coop from my living room, my dining room, my kitchen. There's some pictures attached that show you our view of where our viewpoint is to their backyard. The other piece of that is they don't have a backyard. They have a side yard, and it's a very small side yard. So we just were surprised that they were even allowed to have them based on the makeup of their property. Something else that's really concerning is we really feel like our property value has gone down, truthfully, because if we were to sell, I don't know who would really want to live next to chickens and the visibility of the coop, let alone, and also the state of their property. And I hate to say it, but it's a mess. And there's some pictures of that as well. We will also be attending the zoning board meeting to talk about a fence, to get approval for a higher fence. A couple other things on the first page is the chickens roam the yard freely, and I don't know if that's appropriate, but we can see the chickens individually walking down the fence line and hearing them, all of that. I guess our ask, outside of our personal ask, is to consider revising the chicken guidelines. They seem pretty light from all of the other, and I apologize for my verbiage, but all of the other laws or guidelines in Glencoe. There's just like 10 bullets. I would just ask that you consider the current residents and what the property is like before allowing licenses. I would hate for someone else to have to go through what we've been through the last year. And ultimately, we're asking for the non-renewal of their animal licenses. I also have audio. I don't know if it's appropriate or if you're willing to listen.
We've checked. So I'm going to apologize to you for a couple of things. One, I'm going to apologize to you because the 3 minutes ran out.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Well, I didn't tell you until now.
Okay.
But we try to be consistent and enforce.
Sure. No, of course.
So 3 minutes have happened. Thank you. Let me say, I personally apologize to you for what's happened. You didn't need to know when you came here that we allowed chickens and moved where you did, because we just allowed chickens last year. At the time we did it, we knew that we weren't sure how it was going to work out. We weren't sure what the regulations would need to be, and we said at the time that if it turns out there are issues, we'll reconsider and fix it.
Okay.
And so we're going to do everything I will say, we haven't talked about this yet because we don't, without having a meeting, we can't talk to each other. But I will commit to you we're going to fix it. We're going to figure out how to fix it. And so it's not okay that as a result of law change that we made that you're not happy in your house. And we're going to try to fix it so that you can be okay in your house. I understand, for example, that you're talking about going to the fence board to have a higher fence. I don't know if that will work, but I am sympathetic to, if I were in your shoes, I would not be sure that I had to put up the fence rather than somebody who had chickens. So we're gonna, I hope you're talking to your neighbors to see if there's a way that they can make life more livable. And I appreciate those aren't fun conversations, but we don't have a lot of chickens in Glencoe. We had not gotten complaints before now, but now we have, and so so thank you for coming in.
Okay.
Thank you for telling us. I apologize that this has happened, and we're going to try to figure out a way without banning them across the board, but maybe the yards have to be bigger. Maybe they have to be placed further away, and we're going to try to learn from your unfortunate experience how we can do better.
Okay.
And a lot of times we're approximating when we legislate. This was one of, we don't want to say no to everybody that comes into Glencoe and says they want to do something. And that was the source of chickens, because there are chickens in other places, and we didn't want to just say no. But now that we've seen your experience, we're going to try to fix it. We're going to try to do better, and I want you to feel that you can come talk to the staff, talk to us if we don't accomplish that.
Okay. Thank you.
So thank you, and
Appreciate it.
again, I apologize this has happened. Okay. Is there anyone else that wants to talk to the board about a non-agenda item? Okay.
There's one.
Oh, there is. Come on up.
May I speak from here? It's going to be very brief and not controversial. I'm Mike Mitchell. I live at 13 Fairfield Road. I've been in my house for 32 years. I'd like to commend the village on the job they did in dealing with the microburst that occurred a couple of Tuesdays ago. Could not believe how quickly the debris and the foliage that had dropped to the ground was cleared away. And I just think the village needs to hear that I think they did a great job. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I live at 1245 Longmeadow, which is right there, and we also got creamed, and I know Glencoe did their best to fix it. But thanks very much for your comment. Any other non-agenda items? Okay, the next item on the agenda is reports of committees. The first report is the Committee of the Whole. We ordinarily have Committee of the Whole meetings immediately before this one, but as a result of scheduling, we swapped it, and we had our Committee of the Whole meeting on Tuesday. We talked about two issues. One, we talked about our comprehensive plan, which is in process, and we met with the consultant and the chair of the Plan Commission to talk about the comprehensive plan, and they're going to move on to additional work with the Plan Commission, then eventually it'll get back to us. But they'll be talking to the community in the interim. The second thing we did was talk with our consultant and our staff about our strategic plan, and we're also moving forward on that. The next report is the report of the Finance Committee. We just had that. Trustee Rubin is the chair of the Finance Committee.
Summary that the finance committee gets. It's all posted online, and it's quite extensive and transparent. So I will be brief. Some good news in general. First of all, village finances are in good shape. Our property tax receipts
Yes, and we did meet on August 28th, and we had 2 items on the agenda at that time. One of them was the continued discussion about the comprehensive plan, which then was discussed at our committee of the whole meeting, as Village President Rowan did say. The other item was the proposed preliminary plat of subdivision and plat of vacation for the 3-lot subdivision at 5 Briar Lane, which of course is on the agenda today. We will be meeting again in October, on October 23rd, to have further discussions on the comprehensive plan, and then we will be scheduling a public hearing on the plan so that members of the public can review it and provide us with their feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. The Golf Advisory Committee met on Monday. And you already heard about the microburst, but that storm on August 27th caused severe damage to the golf course, resulting in loss of 30 trees. The golf course was closed for 2 days, and the damage expenses are estimated to be over $100,000. I can say, I was there when it happened, and then I went there the 2 days after to see it, and the amount of damage was mind-boggling. But the Stella and the crew did an amazing job to get the golf course back open, and the committee sent a note to the staff to say thank you for the incredible amount of work done in 2 days. So despite the storm turning at the end of the month, it was a good month, and revenues exceeded budget by 15%. And on certainly a happy note, several area high schools utilized our golf course in August for tryouts, including Evanston, New Trier, Loyola, Niles, and North Shore Country Day. That's all.
Thanks for that report. The next report is
Good evening, everyone. The start of our August 27th meeting, we were delayed due to the severe storms that night, but we were eventually called to order around 8. At that meeting, we made plans for the Glencoe Golf Course Stargazing event, which was held this past Tuesday. We also started planning programs and activities for 2025. In May, we entered into Village entered into a franchise agreement with Waste Not for residential food scrap collection. As of August 29th, Waste Not has 76 household subscribers and has collected a little over 17,000 pounds of compostable waste. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. The GCIC met on Monday, September 9th at 5:30. The meeting began with reports from the Community Relations, Communications, Events, and Integrating Community Feedback subcommittees. Following these updates, the Council held an in-depth discussion on future goals and strategic initiatives. A key point of conversation was the importance of collaboration with community organizations, including the library, Park District, and local nonprofits. The Council also emphasized improving communication between different councils and sharing valuable contact information. Additional discussions center on continuing review of the Village's 12-month social media schedule with the goal of increasing community engagement and promoting GCIC initiatives. The next council meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 7th at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thanks for that report. The next report is the Preservation Commission, and Trustee Onderdunk is our representative on that.
The Preservation Commission held a public hearing on 80 Estate Drive in Glencoe. I believe it was August, I can't read my writing, at their August meeting. At that time, they reviewed with the applicant a proposal to amend the existing restrictions on the property. The property is covered by the Village's Historic Preservation Ordinance. Last year, the community did a certification of the property as not only historic, but also
since that time, the property has been sold to a new owner who would like to make some additional changes. These changes were discussed by the commission at a public hearing. This is an amendment to the certified landmark ordinance and declarations. The property itself consists of the home itself, some landscaping, and some interior items were also landmarked, which is quite unusual. The new owners of the property are desirous of keeping the historic character of the property, but they would like to make some upgrades, especially with respect to sustainability and and items that cannot be viewed from outside the property. For that, they came before the commission. They also brought their expert, which was an expert in historic preservation, who's done a lot of work for the village and other North Shore communities. After considerable discussion, the commission decided to make a recommendation for the items that are listed in your agenda packet to bring that forward to the full board for your consideration, and it's on your agenda tonight. And I believe the next meeting will be September 23rd.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Onderdonk, for that report, but don't go away, because you're also our representative on the Tree Commission.
I need some help from staff on this. They sent me a memo, but I couldn't print it out. This is the memo about a new program.
Monica, why don't you just share that report?
Yeah, can you just read it to us?
Starting in October of 2024, the village will be piloting a free curbside buckthorn debris collection program for Glencoe residents every Monday in October and November, and in March and April. Residents may place buckthorn debris in the parkway for collection. The goal of the program is to help residents clear this non-native invasive plant from their properties, allowing native plants and landscaping to thrive. Residents will need to sign up for the free buckthorn pickup through the village website. Additional information, including a link to the online collection request form, will be included in this week's e-news.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. In addition, the committee is continuing to do its research on mid-century modern homes and trying to develop a communication plan for people to realize the importance of the older homes are in the community for the community character. Thank you.
And that concludes our reports of committees. The next item on the agenda is reports of officers, and first the village manager's report. So, Village Manager Crowley.
Good evening. Thank you, President Rowan. Good evening to the board and to everyone watching this evening. Just a few items on the manager's report tonight. I'd like to get started. We've already talked briefly this evening, and we got a public comment on this subject. The August 27th storm that hit our community unexpectedly, and yet we sprung into action to respond. I'd like to have Monica Sarna, our Public Works Director, and Stella Nanos, our Golf Club Manager, provide the board with a report on the response in the community, and of course the response at the golf course as well. So I'm going to turn that over to Monica first.
Thank you. On Tuesday evening, August 27th, the village experienced a unique storm that required immediate action from our public safety and public works crews. Our teams worked through the night to clear the roadways from fallen trees and limbs, but our crews were limited to addressing all of the road closures as some of the damage was tangled into ComEd's power lines. The night of the storm, over 1,400 residents lost their power. We were immediately in contact with ComEd to assess our critical infrastructure and request their assistance in opening our roads. By the next morning, 400 residents remained without power, and staff began to formulate a plan to address the full scope of the cleanup. What followed was an impressive response from our team as they continued to provide access to our roadways and our sidewalks. Our neighbors from Winnetka, Wilmette, and Glenview all offered support with their crews and equipment to help clear the storm debris. Old Green Bay Road, just south of Maple Hill, became a staging ground for the fallen trees and tree limbs. And I don't know if any of you were able to drive by and witness it. There's a picture up there. It was just an insane amount of storm damage that we had. Staff became inundated with phone calls from residents as they were looking for answers regarding their tree damage, the status of their power, and also what to do with the food in their fridge as the power for some residents remained out. While ComEd guaranteed the village with an immediate reaction, the next morning we saw little action from their crews. By Thursday afternoon, or when ComEd crews arrived on site, they were often unprepared for the amount of storm damage that they saw and had to reassess their plans. By Thursday afternoon, over 40 hours since the beginning of the storm, we still had about 80 residents without power. At this time, staff had processed over 130 service requests from our residents through our new online service request portal, and we had logged over 30 instances of trees and tree limbs on power lines and back and rear yards. Our garbage collector, LRS, came to help us. They offered free waste collection for the following week, and they also helped coordinate hauling off the 50 truckloads of the debris that we had staged on Old Green Bay Road. After several more conversations with ComEd regarding a complex recovery, and you can see at Sylvan Bridge up there, there were 3 power poles down, and also a couple other very complex recoveries or repairs with ComEd, we finally regained power by Thursday evening for all of our residents. Staff is scheduling a follow-up with ComEd to talk about lessons learned throughout the storm. We're also going to talk to them about looking at our critical infrastructure. One of them being the 2 million gallon reservoir by the power plant, which was impacted by the storm. So hopefully they'll be able to make critical infrastructure changes to address how we can react to those critical infrastructures and emergency responses. Our forestry team is still assessing all the damage in the parkway trees. So we don't have a final count on the number of trees lost in the storm, but it's safe to say that there are dozens and even more when we talk about the number of private trees that were lost. The golf course was no exception to the storm damage, and I'll let Stella talk about that.
Thank you, Monica. So yes, unfortunately, we were the recipient of this microburst. We had over 30 trees that were completely either uprooted or cut in half, and debris all over the golf course. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. Obviously, that's our main concern, but the cleanup was extensive and it had to be done by hand because you can't really plow through fairways and greens and tees. Our staff did an exemplary job of working many, many hours, including our pro shop staff with Matt and Caesar, myself out there. We asked for volunteers from our staff to come in and help, and we had several come in to help as well. So a lot of handwork, but debris was everywhere, and it's also the urgency to remove everything because you can't go with unmowed greens and tees for too long or the grass starts to become damaged. So we cleared off the playing areas very quickly and were able to reopen after 2 days. And then we engaged outside companies to come in and help us clear the debris. Our low estimate is probably over $100,000 in expenses. We had damage to our pump house from power surges as well. Public Works was able to come and help us, believe it or not, after they took care of all the streets. They did a great job with the golf course as well. So we're pretty much back to normal, but we have 30 stumps now that have to be removed and restored, and the landscape of the golf course is definitely different, so we will be doing a tree replanting program.
So it was really a traumatic storm. I think it was an unexpected one. I just want to underscore my gratitude to our teams, Public Safety, Public Works, our administrative staff here at the Village Hall, the golf club team, all of whom jumped to action just to underscore gratitude to our neighbors who, my colleagues in those three communities, Glenview, Wilmette, and Winnetka, all reached out that night and said, what can we do to help? How can we assist? I've gotten questions of, well, how do we reimburse our neighboring communities for the work that they did? The simple answer is we don't. We help each other out when the call is made. And that's what mutual aid is all about, and we're grateful to those communities for their support. Again, the staff response was nonstop over about a 50-hour period of time. Public Works really did jump to action in a remarkable way. And I think when I drove home at about 11 o'clock that night to a very dark neighborhood, it looked as though a bomb had gone off in North Glencoe. In South Glencoe, you didn't really see much damage at all. And the nature of the storm damage was just very acute. By 7 o'clock the next morning, we had nearly every street, especially our major thoroughfares, open to traffic. And that is simply because our Public Works team jumped to action and were doing everything they could to get those roads open. Public Safety was out there making sure that downed power lines were clearly delineated. It really was a team effort. And one that, as I said, was unexpected. There were severe thunderstorm warnings that evening, but the severity of the storm was simply not something that we thought was going to impact our community. So thank you to our team. Thank you to the community for patience as we worked with you. I do recognize that there were a lot of questions that we didn't have answers to right away, particularly with respect to how to deal with neighbors' trees that were on roofs and neighbors' trees that may be in a yard. Gratefully, a lot of neighbors were working together. I saw that happen in my own neighborhood where folks were moving branches as a collective whole. There were a lot of electric cords running across streets to help people whose power was out. So it was nice to see the community come together so well. And as Monica said, we're going to be sitting down with ComEd to talk a bit about what happened with this storm. It was a unique response from them, and we want to make sure that our experience is one that we can share with them to help improve future responses here in Glencoe. But it really was a unique few days. So thank you to the community for the support. We've gotten a lot of thank yous, a lot of positive responses. That is helpful to the team as they're going through some really long days. Public Works, I think they were in 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. For 3 days in a row into the weekend as well, just trying to make sure that we could get everything moved. So a great job done by all. Okay, a couple of other quick items for my report. Just a note that there is information on the village's website relative to the home rule referendum. As the community is aware, last month at this meeting, the village board voted to place a question relative to home rule on the November 5th ballot. We have had 3 public forums here in this room. The most recent one was last Thursday. The recordings of all of those meetings are up on the village's website. We have one more public forum scheduled for October 8th at 6 p.m. That is actually scheduled to be at the library, at the Glencoe Public Library. A great deal of information, lots of FAQs on the website, and that is www.villageofglencoe.org/home rule. Deputy Village Manager Nikki Larson and I have been responding to resident questions that have been coming in, and we're going to try to get those posted on the website as well, so that residents have the benefit of their neighbors' questions and the answers to those questions. So we will continue to provide that information, and again, please feel free to reach out to my office with questions. Speaking of questions, we've been getting a lot of them as it relates to the Union Pacific Railroad and some of the overnight work that has been going on here in Glencoe. I did announce last month at this meeting that we had just been notified that they were going to again commence overnight work to replace railroad ties really along the entire UP North Line from Chicago up to Highland Park. The last few evenings, that work has really been focused on kind of north and central Glencoe. You're hearing a lot of train horns. You're hearing a lot of activity on those tracks. They are working from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Every night in an effort to limit the impact on Metra and limit the impact on the commuter lines that are running during the day. But because of that, there is some disruption at night. Why are they sounding the horns? That is a safety requirement set by the Federal Rail Administration whenever there are workers on or around railroad tracks. The horns are being sounded by some of the equipment that is actually on and around the tracks as well. And we do recognize that that is a disruption. There is a portal that the UP has pulled together. We will make sure that that is in tomorrow's edition of E-News again, and we'll try to continue to run that information. We've been running it for the last several weeks. It's a complaint form. I would say I think they're aware of the fact that it's loud. They are also aware of the fact that it's in everyone's interest that they get this work done as quickly as possible and out of town as quickly as possible. And that is supposed to conclude, everything is supposed to conclude by October 3rd. So we will make sure that information's available, and if questions come through, we will happily answer them as best as we can, but that work will continue for a couple more weeks and then should abate. I will say I don't think it's going to be happening in Glencoe for a couple more weeks because they are kind of working their way up and down the two lines. So I expect that we will probably see some work next week, and then it should abate from there. And then last but not least, there is a new event, a returning event, I should say, that the village is hosting. Our Touch a Truck event is coming up on Saturday, October 5th. It's going to be outside here on Village Court and in front of the public safety bays. That is from 9 a.m. to noon. From 11 to noon that morning, we will have a sensory hour, so there will be no horns, lights, or sirens during that time. But we encourage the community to come out, climb on some of that public works equipment that they saw, moving trees and rearranging town after that storm, have a chance to crawl through our fire apparatus and our public safety squad vehicles. It's really a fun event, and we're looking forward to being able to host it for the community. So again, that's coming up on the 5th of October, 9 to noon, and we'll hope to see you there. That's all I have.
All right, thanks for that report. The next item on the agenda is the village president's report. That's me. 3 items. First, the appointment of Lloyd Gross-Tuckman as co-chair of the Sustainability Task Force. It's been circulated already to the board, and if there isn't any discussion, could we have I think we need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of appointing Ms. Tuckman?
Aye.
So she's a new co-chair of the Sustainability Task Force. Second item on the agenda is consideration of a proclamation declaring September 15 to October 15, 2024 as Hispanic Heritage Month. Again, we've circulated the proclamation online and to the community. If there aren't any questions, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of issuing the Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation, say aye.
Aye.
That motion has been approved. The next item on the agenda is consideration of a proclamation declaring October 6th to 12th as Fire Prevention Week. Again, that's been circulated to the public and the board already. If there isn't any discussion, is there a motion to approve this proclamation?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion is carried. So that, there's one other thing I want to mention in my village president's report. So Glencoe is a really small town. We have some 8,850 people. But we're proud of our little village. And one of the reasons we're proud of our little village is because of the superb staff that we have, which is sort of illustrated by the following two facts. There is a statewide organization called the Illinois City County Management Association, which represents 800 city, village, and county managers throughout the state. The president of that outfit is none other than our manager, Phil Corrali. There is another organization called the Illinois Government Finance Officers Association, and this organization represents some 1,000 finance directors, finance professionals, and other folks in the government. The president of this statewide organization is none other than our deputy village manager and CFO, Nikki Larson. So here we are, this little town, but our staff, the folks at our staff, are heads of both of the organizations at the same time. And we know we have a good staff, and everybody else does too now. So, congrats to them and to Glencoe for having them. Okay, that concludes my report. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. This includes items that have been published online for the community and reviewed by the board members individually or together as part of the committee on the whole discussions. We don't think they warrant any further public discussion, but there's a list of them that's been published. Unless there are any questions about those, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So it's been moved and seconded. On this, we need a roll call vote. So could we have that, please?
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listner.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos.
Yes.
Trustee Underdunk.
Yes.
Trustee Rubin. Trustee Scott.
Yes.
So the consent agenda is passed. We now move to regular business. So it's been some 55 minutes, which is a little longer than usual, and I apologize to the folks who've come in to talk about this, but we're doing the best we can. The first item is a resolution considering the approval of a preliminary plat of subdivision for 5 Briar Lane, and I'll ask our Development Services Director, Taylor Baxter, to present. And then, just so we follow what the program is here, after Taylor presents, I'll ask if the trustees have any questions for Taylor, and then after that, because I know there are folks who want to speak, I'll ask for representatives of the club and the owner and the public to speak after that. Taylor.
Thank you, President Rowan. This is a review of a proposal for a subdivision of the property that is now 5 Briar Lane. This is currently one existing house on one zoning lot. And the proposal is 3 new single-family homes, so it's a 1-to-3 subdivision. This proposal also includes the reconfiguration of what is now a hammerhead-style street end at the end of Briar Lane into a circular cul-de-sac, which is a separate but related plat of vacation, which we'll talk about in a moment. The subdivision review process, this is a 4-step process, and we are on step number 2 out of 4. This was reviewed by the Plan Commission in late August. The Plan Commission reviewed both the preliminary plat of subdivision and the plat of vacation and recommended approval of both. We're now on step 2. Tonight you're just reviewing the preliminary plat. We'll talk again about the plat of vacation in a moment. If you do approve the preliminary plat this evening, the final plat will then go back to the Plan Commission for another round of review. They will make another recommendation on the final plat, and then the last round would be the final plat returning to you along with the plat of vacation for a final decision. Here's the existing conditions of the property. This is about an 87,000 square foot lot at the very far west end of Briar Lane. This is a cul-de-sac street, and it is surrounded on three sides by Skokie Country Club property also to the north, the west, and to the south. To zoom out, because we are likely to talk a bit about the country club this evening and its relationship to this property, those blue arrows show where two holes on the golf course are. The one down below, the balls go from east to west along the southern end of this property, and then they come back from west to east along the north side of this property. That's just for some context, as we will likely have that discussion later on as part of the public comment. That was a pretty significant part of the discussion that the Plan Commission had last month. Existing and proposed lots, again, the current lot is just over 87,000 square feet. The minimum lot size in this district, the RA zoning district, is 20,000 square feet. So there's enough room for 4 lots here, but nobody was successful in making the lot width work. So you can get 3 conforming lots here on this property that meet all zoning requirements: the 100-foot average lot width and the 20,000 square foot lot size. These lots, as proposed, range from over 31,000 feet to just over 23,000 feet, the smallest one. No zoning variations are being requested. These lots all meet all requirements of the zoning code. The proposed subdivision, you can see at the end of the, this includes the reconfigured cul-de-sac there. 3 lots, lot 1 to the north, lot 2 in the middle, and lot 3 to the south. The packet you have tonight includes engineering plans. Preliminary engineering plans are a requirement of this process. The proposal includes some new stormwater management infrastructure. The Public Works Department has required this hammerhead reconfiguration. This is not something that the applicant came to us and said, hey, we want to do this. This was something that the Public Works Department said as part of this subdivision, you need to reconfigure this. The hammerhead does not meet our engineering standards, while that reconfigured circular cul-de-sac would be code compliant with all our engineering standards. There is some tree removal also, which we'll touch on momentarily. The stormwater management plans, again, these preliminary plans are in the agenda packet. They're not final engineering plans. New detention areas proposed on each lot, drainage inlets and storm sewer installation. These preliminary plans have been reviewed by the village engineer, and in the opinion of the Public Works Department and the village engineer, on a preliminary basis, they do meet our engineering standards. Another part of the engineering plans, here's the cul-de-sac. This is the cul-de-sac in red, overlaid on the existing hammerhead. Also in relation to, just for some context, where the front of the existing house. That's the existing house on 5 Briar there, just to the west or the left side of that proposed new cul-de-sac. Tree removal, there was a bit of discussion at the Plan Commission about tree removal, and it was one of the recommended conditions that the Plan Commission put on this preliminary plat, was that they provide some more detail on tree removal and protection. There are 4 trees proposed to be removed for the cul-de-sac. 2 trees are proposed to be removed near the back of the lot. There was a lot of concern expressed by members of the country club and neighbors about preserving the existing trees along the back of the lot, kind of the dividing line between the country club property and the 5 Briar property. The only 2 trees that are proposed as part of this subdivision to be removed back there are 2 trees that are in very poor condition, the lowest rated condition that we have. Those are trees that we would not even require a deposit to remove typically. 2 healthy trees proposed to be removed on the northernmost lot, lot 1. These are likely to be removed, but it's dependent on final house location. You know, these boxes are really, they're not final, the house footprints. We don't get to that level of detail at this point in this process. It could be 3 trees removed up there, it could be 1, but likely these 2 at least. These are healthy trees which we would take tree removal deposits for. A few zoning considerations. Again, the lots all meet all zoning requirements. Setbacks, 50 feet on the front, 12 on each side. There was a lot of concerns expressed at the Plan Commission meeting about things being located too close to especially country club property. Typically, accessory structures, pools, sport courts have a 5-foot rear setback, which is much greater allowance than your house, which is 20% of lot depth from the rear. I mentioned that the village board can require greater setbacks than the zoning code requires as part of the subdivision process. I would mention that those should likely be tied to the standards of review, which are really heavily focused on zoning and engineering compliance. But that is an option that you have if you determine that that is necessary. But I would also like to call your attention to the 40-foot easement that runs along a good portion of the back of this property because there were concerns expressed about that 5-foot allowable rear setback. The 40-foot easement is on the left side here, the west side of the property. This is the drainage and utility easement, which is already in place. There's stormwater utilities going through here already. Then we have these other easements which are proposed running through the property and along the east side of the property as part of this subdivision. We've discussed this with our engineering staff. No buildings, pools, or sport courts would be allowed to be built in that 40-foot easement. I note it does not cover the very far southern part of this property. So there is that little space near the very southern triangle of Lot 3 down here where there is no easement. And this easement would remain in place unless at some point in the future drainage or utility systems were altered, which we have there's no plans to do so. So that would by itself, this easement would increase that required setback to much greater than 5 feet along that part of the property that's in red there. Historic preservation, the existing house is quite old. It is noted to be historically significant. That's the village's historically significant list. It does not have any landmark status. It is not an honorary or certified landmark, which means that the village has no authority to prevent demolition of this house on preservation grounds. I'll mention the plat of vacation, although it is not part of your agenda packet tonight because it is part of this project. This, again, would return with the final plat. We're not having it as part of the agenda packet tonight because we don't want the village to vacate this property, vacate the right-of-way, while this final plat is still going through the Plan Commission review process. The cul-de-sac construction is required, again, per the Public Works Department, and this necessitates both the vacation of what is currently public right-of-way and the dedication of what is currently private property to public right-of-way. So it's a swap between the property owner and the village. The dedication area significantly exceeds the vacation, which means that the village is getting more property. The property owner is giving up more property than they're getting back, significantly. The vacation, the village would be transferring what is currently public right-of-way to 5 adjacent lots. 2 of those lots are part of the 5 Briar subdivision, and 3 are other properties nearby along Briar Lane. Those owners would need to accept that conveyance, or the land would just remain public right-of-way. To illustrate that, you can see here in red, that's the land that is currently private property owned by 5 Briar, which would become village right-of-way. The blue is a significantly smaller amount of land that is currently public right-of-way, which would become private property. And that private property would go to 5 different property owners surrounding this subdivision. Again, this is not, the final approval of this plat of vacation is not before you tonight, but it would come back to you with the next round of review. Public comment. We received a significant amount of public comment, both written and in person. Written comments from people mostly along Briar Lane, but also elsewhere in the village. Members of the Skokie Country Club, which is next door, and from the country club itself. These comments expressed concerns about safety, particularly with golf balls flying into the property, stormwater, construction, traffic, and neighborhood character overall. Just to touch briefly on the golf ball conversation, which we'll likely have in more depth as part of public comment. The Plan Commission had this conversation in detail at its meeting last month. We've talked to our village attorney about it, and the Plan Commission, it says Plan Commission, this should say Village Board, and the Plan Commission, we have standards of review within the subdivision code, which guide this review process, and the board should review the proposal according to those standards in the subdivision code, and they're also in your staff report. And those standards are focused heavily on compliance with the zoning and engineering standards, and this subdivision, as proposed, does meet all zoning and engineering standards. Property owners near a golf course may put up protective netting with village manager approval. So homeowners surrounding a golf course, if you're within 750 feet of a golf course, you can ask the village manager for permission to put up protective netting on your own property. Likewise, any property owner, including a golf club, may apply for a special use permit for protective netting or protective fencing as well. That would be a public hearing and a decision on that by the village board. I mentioned those just to note that there are options for protection that private property owners have on both sides of the property line. Standards for review, again, these are found in the subdivision code and the agenda memo. And again, they're focused on compliance with zoning and engineering standards, and the proposed subdivision does comply. Plan Commission recommendation, they recommended approval of the preliminary plat and the subdivision of subdivision and of the platification. They included conditions of approval. These conditions of approval were intended to be addressed before the plans and the plat came to you tonight. So between the Plan Commission meeting and tonight, the applicant provided revisions intended to meet those conditions of approval. Those included additional detail on tree protection and stormwater, options for golf ball safety, and options to reconfigure the lot lines to mitigate impacts, especially of car headlights shining into neighboring properties. So they did provide updated plans for tree protection and stormwater, which are in your packet. They reconfigured this lot line between lots 2 and 3. Previously, this was a straight east-west lot line, and there were concerns about cars turning directly south and shining in headlights into the 7 Briar property adjacent. So the applicant has reconfigured the lot line to allow kind of a smoother, more east-west driveway going into this property to meet that concern. They've also added some screening trees, proposed some screening trees to help mitigate those traffic lights also. They have also added screening trees along this corner, the southernmost corner of the property, to help protect from golf balls. In my conversations with the applicant, they've noted that they're open to discussing other options for protection, including opaque fencing, setbacks, etc. Next steps for the village board would be to move to approve or deny the resolution approving the preliminary plat. You can include conditions and or instructions to staff or the applicant, and then this would move back to the Plan Commission for review of the final plat if you approve the preliminary plat this evening. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
So before we hear from members of the public, which means the club members, nearby residents, and the developer, do trustees have questions for Taylor?
I have a quick technical golf question. Can someone say what is the distance between a middle tee set on 8 and where a drive would land relative to the picture? I can see it. Just where does it land? What's 250 yards from the tee? Where is that on the picture?
That could likely be better answered by representatives from the
Someone
club.
just point where that landed. Is it here? Is this 250 yards? I mean, I don't know.
I have that answer. Excuse me if I may.
Come on up. You got a question? You can answer it.
The answer to that is...
But before you do, say your name so we have it for the record.
Sure, thank you. I'll try to answer your question, sir. My name's John Murphy. I'm a Glencoe resident for 25 years. I'm also a member of Skokie Country Club and a member of its board of directors. To answer your question, we did submit that information to the Plan Commission. And I know that you were pointing to the house. I'm not sure exactly where the middle of the fairway is, where that ball, where those balls will land if you had a perfect shot, put it that way. But if you hit the property, on the seventh hole, which is the lower one, that is basically 139 yards from the men's, they'll call men's tees, the regular tee on the seventh hole. It's a 139-yard shot to hit the property. On the eighth hole, which is the top one, that would be 194 yards from the tee to your on the property of Five Briar. I hope that answers the question.
So you're talking 198 yards to here, to that corner.
It would be from the tee to the closest corner there, right where it's being noted there. That is a 194-yard shot, and conversely on the seventh hole, it's from the tee to the closest corner of the property. That's a 139-yard shot, and to reference.
The bigger problem's 8, right? I mean,
excuse me.
The bigger problem's 8, not 7, right?
Well, actually, I would say the bigger problem is probably 7 because it's a shorter. It's easier to hit. You don't have to hit it 194 yards. 194 yards tends to be a better golfer probably, and the ball comes in with a little higher velocity because it's usually a bigger, stronger golfer. The 139-yard shot is really a lesser shot. And this is detailed just for your reference on packet page 252. You'll see that this is kind of laid out, and I refer you to that if you need some more information on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And you're not done. You'll get another shot. So. Okay. Anybody else have questions for Taylor before we call for public comment? Okay. And so we're going to have public comment. I just want to say we've appreciated the comments from the club, from the developer, from residents who are members of the club. The club, they came in and talked to us at the village. I went out this afternoon to look so I could see, it was a lovely day to be out there anyway, but I went out to look at this so I could see what the problem was. In any order that folks want, come on up.
I would go in order.
Oh, okay. All right. So,
That's Jan Kogan.
Jan Kogan. Okay. So,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
all right, so you have 3 minutes.
All right, sure. My name is Jan Kogan. I operate and own Highgate Builders. We've done business in Glencoe for 27 years. I've done about 80 houses in Glencoe, numerous remodels. When I contracted Mr. Schmidt and signed purchase and sales agreement, I committed to him that I will design and deliver a subdivision that meets all village's requirements. We're not asking for any variances to any elements of the zoning code. After the Plan Commission approved it with conditions, we believe we've met, revised our plans, and delivered on those promises. As far as logistically managing traffic and construction, we plan to build on the north and the middle lot and use south lot for construction, parking without impacting the traffic. We do not plan and willing to put it in the subdivision agreement that we will not ask for any variances for a rear yard setback and will not be building in the 40 feet utility easement in the back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, then. My village manager suggested I do this in the order the people signed in. So the next person is Ronald Schmidt.
I request to be at the end, please. I'm the owner of the property.
It's like a convention. And we don't have a protocol on that, so far you get to do that. Mike Mitchell.
Good evening. I'm Mike Mitchell. I am a realtor.
You're still Mike Mitchell.
I'm still Mike Mitchell, exactly. I am a realtor with Ad Properties Real Estate, and I've been a realtor, professional realtor and broker for 19 years. Lived in Glencoe for 33 years. I am involved directly with the brokerage of this property, and I can tell you that this house has been on the market continuously since 2006. So it's had 18 years of trial by the market for sale, and this is apparently the highest and best use for this property. We've had some interest, but once people start getting quotes on remodeling an 11,000 square foot house, they find that it is economically unfeasible to redo at the price. It started out at over $10 million. It's now being sold in the $4 million range. So, there's been quite a discount. This is seconded only by Michael Jordan's house, which just went under contract. So it's had its trial. The permeable surface that the house currently creates, the non-permeable surface, will actually be less with the 3 new homes going in than is current. So that should not be an issue. In other words, water management should not be exacerbated by this plan, but actually helped. Outside of that, Mr. Schmidt is now 80 years old. He started trying to sell this house when he was, a much younger man, and it's time. It's time that this house is, is removed, and something that is more in keeping with today's lifestyle be built. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One other thing. Each one of these lots, not exactly, but close to 3/4 of a lot, 3/4 of an acre each. So these are not going to be hemmed in. They're not going to be shoehorning homes into this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person, because Ms. Thompson already talked about her chickens. Mr. Murphy, your turn.
Yes, sir, thank you. Hello again, John Murphy. I'll try to keep it brief. We all know that the Five Briar Lane is a unique property. It sits in a unique location between 2 golf holes at Skokie Country Club. The balls have hit the house, they've hit the pool, they've hit the tennis court. The ball comes fast enough to break tiles on the roof. Mr. Schmidt even acknowledged this at the Plan Commission. So historically, the way this risk has been mitigated is the fact that the perimeter of the physical building of the house is at various points between 117 feet and 165 feet from the golf course or the rear lot line of the property. So there's a lot of distance for the balls to land in without necessarily hitting a house or hitting someone sitting on the porch, even though there's a tennis court there and there's a pool there. But there's a lot of distance, a lot of places for the balls to land. And, under the proposed development, by comparison, the houses can be built within 30 feet. Now, I've heard the representation that he doesn't intend to build within 40 feet or in the easement, and I'll turn to that in a few minutes. But that's a big difference, 115 feet to 30 feet with 3 houses. Everyone here, the club, the Plan Commission, the developer, the neighbors, we all acknowledge that this is a serious safety risk for the people who may live in these houses and their guests. And the developer has not really provided any conditions. For this safety reason, the Plan Commission was explicit in saying that it was recommending the approval of the plat of subdivision, and one of the conditions was the creation of appropriate setbacks that would help address the safety issue. So the Plan Commission is very cognizant of the need for conditions. Now, the conditions that we were talking about that aren't really conditions. They're basically statements that are binding on anybody. We all know that the developer even says in his submission, the September 10 letter, that he can provide no assurance regarding the setback lines. He states that will be dependent on where each house is built on each of the 3 lots. And so there are no assurances. It's just, we want to do this if we can do it, but everyone knows that when you sell a house, you don't have control of it anymore. And someone else could build a patio. Someone else could build a new addition. Someone else can tear it down and add a new house or build a new house. So when we went with the village, we went with actually Trustee Rubin, Village President Rowan, Mr. Baylor, and Mr. Corrali. We met on Friday, and the idea, it came up that, there is a 40-foot easement here. It's a utility easement that stretches across the back of the property mostly, and not 40 feet around the sides. And we thought, oh, boy, that's interesting. That is better than 30 feet, and it's better than 5 feet in terms of what a patio would be.
That's probably us.
Excuse me.
No, it's the end of the timer.
Oh, geez. May I have just 30 more seconds?
Yes.
So my 30 more seconds are this. So we ask that you give us an opportunity we need this condition to be memorialized so future owners, future people who are looking at the property understand that there's an easement here that you can't build on. And we don't want any misunderstanding about that. We're going to interpret that. We want the village to come down and say, this is a condition to the subdivision of this lot. It's no skin off the developer's back. He's in agreement that we should do it. So let's make it official. And that's what I'm proposing we do. And if necessary, the lawyers can meet and try to work out some language. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All right, Mr. Schmidt. Well, Mr. Schmidt first, and all right, well, let's see. Yeah, okay.
Hello, my name is Ronald Schmidt. I am the owner of 5 Briar Lane. I've lived there for 35 years. Most of the stuff I was going to say, the people before me already said. So the house is on the market. I'm ready to move on with my life. It's a big piece of property. I wish somebody would have bought it. The golf course had opportunity, but they decided not to. They hit balls into my backyard from the very beginning, where I had problems with them, and it continues now even worse. I hear about safety, about the new houses they're building, but it's a lot of BS because they don't care about me. They don't care about my house. They don't care about, they hit my kid. My child was on the tennis court. They tore down the trees. They had ash trees. They had to tear them down. But did they plant anything new? No. They didn't plant a tree or fence. They're a tee box. 134 yards. Excuse me, I'm a little bit hyper on this subject. 134 yards. Some of you are golfers. That's pretty close. And they all use drivers. They use drivers. The ball comes flying in. I used to get an average of about 40 on a week. Now I'm getting about 80 because there's no trees. The trees have been cut down and there's no protection. And they have no solution. I made a deal with them 35 years ago. They built a berm. Each member had to pay $600 to build the berm. They didn't like it. I didn't like it, but it was a solution. They planted trees to protect slicers. But what happened? They cut down the trees about 3 years ago. Did they plant any more trees or put up something, a temporary net to protect me? No, because it doesn't fit in with their scheme of how the golf course should look. I have the problem. They don't have the problem. They're talking about potential problems. I'm hoping that this board just approves the sale and work out a deal with the golf course and let them figure out how to protect all the people that are on Briar Lane. Most of the people on Briar Lane are members. I'm not a member. I've never been a member. But I get all the golf balls. My property is more exposed than anybody. But they don't talk to me. They do pay when they break my windows. They break the tiles on my roof. But when they hit my kid, I have nothing to say. Now I have grandchildren running around the pool. Just last week, we had a golf ball going into the pool that was about 4 or 5 feet away from my daughter. And she has her child in the pool too, my grandchild. So it's very upsetting. They sit here like they're innocent and they want to do the best. They don't do the best. They never do. They never did. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. By the way, let me say, I've been in town a long time, and my son used to play with your son at your lovely house. I'm glad at the time nobody got hit by a golf ball, but you could get hit by a golf ball at my house too. Okay, thank you, and we understand the point. Mr. Cogan, you had some time left, so if you want to come on up.
Just to answer Mr. Murphy's.
Okay.
Regarding memorizing. In the subdivision agreement, just to reiterate, I'm completely in agreement with that. I have no intent building in the utility easement. It could be part of the subdivision agreement. No issues at all, at all. Also want to thank you, the board, for considering. Also want to thank the village staff for supporting the subdivision.
Okay, thanks. All right. Thanks to everybody for having come in. This is, there are two sides, maybe three sides. From my point of view, everybody has a legitimate point. They do. If I understand why Mr. Schmidt and his real estate broker would like to finally sell this property, which is, by the way, unbelievably lovely. I don't know if there's a nicer place in the village than Briar Lane, maybe looking at the lake, but it's unbelievably gorgeous, and it's sad that it took this long to sell it. And so I understand his point about wanting to sell, wanting to move forward. I understand Mr. Cogan, Highgate's desire to build in accordance with our laws, our ordinance, our subdivision. It looks like they're complying. I understand the club's concern about not wanting to, injure people, and they want to. We get it, and these are all legitimate points. And we have to sort of balance these. So the way I think about this is, because of the easement for the utilities, the village reads those easements as requiring a way bigger setback than otherwise would be there. And because we read it that way, subject to our lawyers saying different, I don't have any problem with putting into the subdivision agreement a requirement that will be binding with the land. What that would do is it would give the club some assurance that there wouldn't be some dispute later in life about what the meaning of the ordinance is, because everybody now agrees what it means, and somebody could change later. Beyond that, you can imagine, Mr. Schmidt points out that you could put more trees in there. It takes a while for trees to grow. It's really expensive to put in trees that are so big they don't need to grow to accomplish the purpose. There are probably, according to Taylor Baxter, there's been a proposal by the real estate developer to put in some trees at the south, sort of on the south corners of the lot, so that there'd be more protection, and that seems like a good idea. And it looks to me like there is an opportunity for the parties to agree on almost everything to move forward. And with, us memorializing in the subdivision agreement the easement, and then discussion on other points. There was a request in what we heard from the club that we sort of slow it down now. I don't recommend that we do that, because this is the second of 4 steps. And if we approve if we approve today, all that means is this continues, it goes back to the Plan Commission. I think the club, the owner, and the developer could keep talking about trying to nail it down. So I think everybody has a legitimate point. I don't think we should think anybody did anything wrong. Um, I feel for the Schmidts who've been barraged by golf balls. And I empathize because I live on the 18th fairway of the Glencoe Golf Course. My yard is a slice away, and I am also barraged by golf balls. But that's, so Mr. Schmidt and I have a sort of similar circumstance. The new people that move in will be barraged by golf balls to some extent, and I hope that as the parties move forward, the developer, the club, the new residents, and us, as we sort of try to nail down the subdivision, we do our best to reduce that. Can't eliminate it, or at least the village doesn't have the power to eliminate it. So, but I would suggest that add, subject to our lawyer saying it's okay, that we add to the plat the easement so that it's memorialized as a sort of running with the land protection, and that and if there are other protections that the developer is already agreeing to, that we find a way to include those so they can't welsh, and that we move forward. And while this is moving forward, the club, the developer, the neighbors keep talking about protections that they can all agree would help. So that's my recommendation. Trustees, for Steve, can we do what I've just said?
Absolutely. Let me just make sure, earlier you referred to something called a subdivision agreement. There likely won't be a subdivision agreement here, but you then change it to putting it on the plat of subdivision. There will be a plat onto which we could lay easements, restrictions, and whatever is ultimately agreed to.
Okay.
So you did say it ultimately correctly.
Yeah, eventually I get it right. Okay. Anybody?
There may not be. We'll see. I mean, we're not at that stage yet, and so there may not necessarily.
Are there other trustees that want to say, have a different idea, think we're, getting it wrong, or there's something else we should do? Georgia.
Well, I just wanted to ask, this is a 40-foot easement, on the west, and it goes to 10. Why would we extend the easement to be a little bit wider on the top of this wall? We could build, what would anybody build on the other side of that easement?
You mean, you're talking about the little...
South side, yeah.
I'll just say what my understanding, it's just, that's just not where the easement is. I mean, so the easement is a thing that exists for the utilities that are there, and it's not being used, and it's not something that we're creating now.
James can respond to that.
So just as it's depicted now, the narrower 10-foot easement towards the south is to memorialize a storm sewer pipe that will be running through there. On the west side, the wider 40-foot easement memorializes both an existing storm sewer pipe and some overland drainage paths. So that's why the west side is wider. As depicted here, the 10-foot is just to memorialize a pipe that was underground.
We're not, in other words, these are not golf ball easements. They may have the additional advantage. In litigation, we used to say the additional advantage of being true. I'm going to say these easements, they're easements for something else. They may have, from the point of view of folks that want to avoid golf ball strikes, an additional advantage of reducing golf ball strikes, but that's not why they exist. And so this is challenging. The club has a legitimate point. The Schmidts have a legitimate point. The developer has a legitimate point. Typically, when someone wants to do something with their property, and it complies with all of our laws and regulations, we let them do it. It's not that unusual when a neighbor says, well, I don't like that for this or that reasons. This one's, interesting because it's safety and golf balls, but it's also the club's business. Mr. Schmidt had a point when he said, look, if the club really didn't like this, they could have bought the property. Now, that would have been a big purchase, but they didn't. And when I first started as president, I talked to our former public works manager. He said one of the issues that we have in Glencoe is that, and this is human nature, people think they have rights over their neighbor's property, but they often don't. And this is an example of that. Doesn't mean the club's concern isn't legitimate. It is, but it's it's Mr. Schmidt's property. It's Highgate's property. They want to develop it, and they're complying with all of our laws. And it's very, very unusual when we say to somebody, yes, you're complying with all our laws, but we're still not going to let you do it. And so that's why this is challenging. Gary.
As a follow-up, because I agree with you. Everybody has a legitimate good faith interest in this, and everybody, nobody that has spoken can be said to be unreasonable or out of control or anything else. But at the end of the day, personally, the way I view it is, to the president's point, do I have rights to tell you exactly what you should or shouldn't do with your property if you're otherwise complying with all laws? And if I'm doing something, some operation on my property that creates a risk to you, where should the mitigation obligation fall? Who should take care of mitigating the risk? We would like the club and the property owner, developer, to get together, figure it out, come to an agreement between themselves. But were the government to impose a cost, either in the form of taking away value from somebody or imposing an out-of-pocket expense on somebody to mitigate a risk, then you have to say, again, with my personal view, I got a commercial operation that's inherently risky. I got a private property owner that's minding their own business. Everybody can make their own call on that. But I don't know that the government should be doing that. The developer's got to build something that people will buy when it's all said and done, knowing they're sitting on a golf course. And on the other hand, the golf course has to say, oh my goodness, if I'm really worried about something, like when they cut down the trees, they could have put up a net until their new trees grew. But we're told they do. So, I'm in favor of the president.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, so I also am in favor of the 40-foot easement and memorializing it. So the one thing I would just like to say is, I mean, if Mr. Schmidt is finding 80 golf balls a week on his property, those 80 golf balls are still going to be landing on that property, whether there are 3 houses there or there's 1 house. And we frankly won't have solved, the safety issue, and I don't think that's going to happen unless there's extensive landscaping and really thoughtful ways to mitigate that problem. But whether there's 1 house on this property or 3 houses, if 80 balls are landing each week on that property, I mean, I think we need, the club needs to figure out, and the developer, needs to figure out how do you landscape so that 80 balls won't be landing there anymore.
So I understand that point, which, quite logical. I'll make the club's point about the increased danger. What they say the increased danger is now you have a household. It includes grandchildren now, but you have a household. But when there are 3 houses, you have 3 households. Plus, you're going to have, somebody's going to be closer to the line. If you went out there now, you'd see this big, huge property, a big house, but now you're going to have the furthest south houses closer. So they say it's going to be potentially more dangerous. It's been many years. Fortunately, nobody's been seriously injured. Nobody's been seriously injured in my house, notwithstanding the barrage. But the principles are still, the property is where it is. It's got its pluses and minuses. It's unbelievably beautiful, but it's got a golf course next to it. And nobody's telling them they can't have a golf course. And we're reluctant to say nobody's going to tell the owners at 5 Briar they can't have 3 houses. Okay, I think we've talked about it. It's not solved yet, but I think there's a proposal for moving forward, making some fixes that might help, not solve, but might help, and an opportunity for all the parties to keep working on it to try to get the best thing we can get. But I want to make clear we understand everybody's point, but I'm sympathetic. I'll focus on Mr. Schmidt. I'm sympathetic to Mr. Schmidt's point that he's entitled to do with his property what he would like as long as he's not hurting anybody. Okay, so we need a motion, I think, to move forward with an agreement, with an understanding that will add to the subdivision plat, the easements. Maybe we fully addressed George's question about can we pretend, sort of act like there's an easement on that south parcel, and my only concern is there isn't actually an easement there, so we would be it wouldn't be quite honest if we did that, and so I would say to the club and the developer and the owner, keep talking about what restrictions, if any, you can agree on for that little triangle south of the easement. Sure. That guy. So, so really, I mean, the issue, and look, I don't know how much it's worth to the developer to be able to say to somebody, you can put a gazebo there, you can put a patio there. If I were the owner of that property, I might not want to be in the line of fire because you'd have to issue helmets. But, and so I would think maybe that's a place where everybody agrees, the club, the developer, what we're going to do about that. But we're not, but we can't just.
Wait, what?
I'm totally confident that we've had conversations. I've personally had conversations with Chris and John. I've never met Mr. Murphy in person, but I'm convinced that this triangle is not going to be an issue. You're at something there and this is a solution.
Okay, good. All right, well, it had, and Mr. Murphy, I would, you could probably be saying there saying, well, we haven't made a deal yet, and that'll be true. And so, we'll look to see what happens as the process moves forward. All right, is there a motion to move forward?
Well, there's actually a resolution to approve the preliminary plat and then perhaps move forward to address additional restrictions on the existing utility easement.
Yeah, with the building into the plat, the utility easement as pictured in the drawing we just looked at.
Additional restrictions to the utility
Yes,
easement.
right. It would be additional restrictions
To the
on the
existing-
plat in the place where the existing easement is. I think that's what it is.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we need a roll call then.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listner?
Yes.
Trustee Malopoulos?
Yes.
Trustee Onderdonk? Trustee Rubin? Trustee Scott?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. We understand it's not over, and no, the village staff and the village board, we're not leaving town, so we're happy to continue to hear from any or all of you so that we get this right as it goes forward. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to the Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Kogan, Mr. Murphy, Mr. Guy. Thank you for coming in. I hope this works out. Okay. The next item on the agenda is consideration of a resolution authorizing a contract with Tesca Associates for the completion of a parking and streetscape study in the downtown business district. And I'll ask our Assistant Village Manager, Ben Weiberg, to present.
Good evening, President Rowan and the Board of Trustees. This evening, staff is requesting board consideration of a contract with Tesca Associates for the completion of a parking and streetscape study in the downtown business district. This past summer, the village board had a conversation at their June committee of the whole meeting regarding the current state of the downtown business district parking and streetscape effectiveness. There's a few tongue twisters in here tonight. Following months of public discussion, particularly around outdoor dining and ongoing parking issues that both residents and businesses have communicated with the board and staff. At that June committee of the whole meeting, a few items were noted and discussed regarding the streetscape and parking landscapes in the downtown business district. One topic that was that the streetscape in the downtown area is generally great. However, it may need some adjustments to meet changing resident and business expectations. Taking a closer look at sidewalks, parking areas, streets, intersections, alleys, landscaping, lighting, outdoor dining spaces, and even street furniture, and how they're being used, as well as opportunities for improvement. With more interest in outdoor dining, it's important to figure out how to keep a balance between seating areas, parking, and making sure pedestrians are still well protected. Accompanying the streetscape, parking has been a consistent issue with all patrons of downtown. While making big changes to the parking setup is not an easy task, staff recommended a thorough parking study to update the one completed in 2015. Based on board feedback, staff put together and issued a request for proposals in early August for a downtown business district streetscape and parking study. The main goals of the RFP are listed here, and the original document was included in the board packet for this evening. At the closing of the RFP timeline, staff received responses from 4 vendors. An interdepartmental team of staff interviewed all 4 respondents, asking specific questions about the current conditions in the downtown area and what specific ideas or best practices could be utilized to improve the situation. The interviews also served to see how the firms operate, learn more about their experience with those similar projects, their approach to community engagement, and ultimately implementing recommendations. Each firm brought forward different recommendations, offering real opportunities for the village to carefully assess the situation and propose improvements to the board. Following this review, staff is recommending proceeding with the proposal from Tesca Associates due to their approach to the study, their proven experience in Glencoe and comparable communities, their focus on safety and multimodal transportation, and their overall cost. Tesca will be completing the streetscape component of the study and will be partnering with Sam Schwartz for the parking component. Both firms are highly experienced and have worked on numerous projects in neighboring municipalities, including Arlington Heights, Evanston, and Glenview. Tesca was behind the successful streetscape designs in Winnetka and Wilmette, and even designed the award-winning Tudor Court in Glencoe, which was completed in 2021. In their interviews, the Tesca and Sam Schwartz team shared ideas on how they could blend the current downtown layout with innovative solutions to further improve it. Data collection will be a crucial component of identifying the best ways to enhance parking and the overall downtown experience. Their approach not only emphasizes data, but also community engagement, with resident and business owner meetings, presentations, and regular interactions with village staff. They'll also set up a web page for residents to provide feedback. In October 2024, they'll conduct a parking survey, tracking usage in the downtown and nearby areas. The results, shared through maps and charts, will help the village understand parking patterns and identify shortages, surpluses, and peak times. TESCA will use this feedback to create visual proposals for the board and community to review before finalizing their recommendations, which will be made to the board. To wrap up, resources for the study and analysis were not included in the calendar year 2024 budget. However, due to delayed or canceled projects that were anticipated to take place this year, there are adequate funds available for this study. The TESCA and Sam Schwartz response to the RFP is also included in tonight's packet on page 280, and Jody Mariano of TESCA and Kelly Connolly of Sam Schwartz are present to respond to any specific questions the board may have.
Thanks for that report. We know TESCA. We've already, I think, a number of us have already looked at the parking studies for either Wilmette or Winnetka. So it's clear they know what they're doing. Parking in Glencoe has been challenging forever. Probably when they're done, it'll continue to be challenging, but we need help. So I think we should proceed with this. And I want to make one totally unrelated comment, because we're talking about streets and safety. I heard by hearsay from Monica that there is some new technology with a crossing light where it lights up the whole area when somebody wants to cross. My heart is in my throat every time I go past the crosswalk on Green Bay that heads to Tudor Court.
Will be on your agenda next month.
So so we can't get that new technology in too soon. So
in process.
Good, because every time I drive by there and I see someone thinking about crossing, I think, oh my God. Okay, I think we should approve this, and I look forward to seeing what our experts from TESCA tell us about parking. Anybody else want to say anything? Is there a motion to approve? Second. We need a roll call.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos. Trustee Underdunk. Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
The motion carries, and the resolution authorizing the contract with TESCA is approved. Okay. Next item on the agenda is other business. Is there any other business? Not hearing any. We're going to have a closed session tonight, so I'll ask for a motion to move into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Open Meetings Act: 2C11, pending litigation; 2C5, sale and lease of property; and 2C21, review of closed session minutes. Is there such a motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We need a roll call for this.
Trustee Hallwax.
Yes.
Trustee Listener.
Yes.
Trustee Mealopoulos. Trustee Underdunk. Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.